Good afternoon and welcome to the Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee, the 9th of the year. I see we have all committee members in attendance. And we'll pass to you, Councillor Kunzelman, for an acknowledgement of country this afternoon.
Thank you, Chair. Today this committee recognises the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. We support their right to democratic representation and social inclusion. Ipswich City Council acknowledges the ongoing challenges faced by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people, and this committee supports their inclusion and participation in community, cultural, arts and sports activities.
Thank you, Councillor. Do any members have any declarations? Moving on to business outstanding, and I guess this one's for you, Mayor. Were you happy with the response provided?
I note the response and I'll probably do some follow-up on that.
Okay.
Just so I think we have, yeah.
A little bit more work?
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Item number 1 this afternoon is the confirmation of the minutes of the previous meeting. The recommendation here is that the minutes of the Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee held on the 5th of September 2023 be confirmed. I'll happily move those. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Any corrections or amendments? No. We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Item number 2 this morning is the Stronger Communities Program 2023. This report summarises the outputs and outcomes of the Stronger Communities Program 2023, a council initiative to enhance the governance, capabilities and capacity of community groups within the Ipswich area. The Stronger Communities Program has provided essential governance skills and resources to more than 110 community groups, enabling them to sustain their efforts in delivering positive community outcomes across the city. Building on its achievements in the 21-22, the program returned in 2023 and achieved an even greater level of engagement. The recommendation here is that the Stronger Communities Program 2023 report be received and its contents noted. I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman. Would anyone like to speak to a relevant council officer? Thank you. Ms. Dower will take the lectern for us this afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councillors. Melissa Dower, Community Services Manager.
Excuse me. Thank you, Ms Dower. I can see so many advantages for the organisations that participated, and I was very happy to attend most of the sessions. And I believe we'll repeat next year, or not decided?
Well, the consensus from everybody that participated in a survey was 100%. They would like to see it back in 2024. So hopefully we can look at working with the community to design another program that suits.
I'm not surprised that there's that level of enthusiasm for the program. But I note that the investment by council is relatively small for the potential benefits to the organisations. But can you advise me of the benefit for council?
Sure. So within our community development strategy, our methodology is working with the community, and this project's really a prime example of how we've done that quite well. What I've noticed in the last 2 years is stronger relationships that we have with community groups, Councillor, which has really increased the level of trust, collaboration and understanding of the role that we play in community, but also how community play a role within the wider city. I've also noticed that we've been able to amplify the community impact, and we've been able to elevate the reach of community groups that may not have had that opportunity. So for a council, that's a great opportunity for us to be across it. And of course, the social and economic benefits, which is a key driver of our strategy and corporate plan, which is the social inclusion, resilience, and the overall community wellbeing. So I find the program has been really successful.
And I think we'll all benefit when community organisations are better run and more collaborative, more inclusive as well. Thank you. That was all.
Thank you. I'd now like to open that up for any discussion. We have, yeah. I moved and Councillor Kunzelman did second it. Yep.
Apologies. Thank you, Chair. May I, Chair? Thank you. Thank you. This has been a wonderful program and a great way for council to assist the community at the grassroots level. We've had 132 dedicated community volunteers. They've gone back to their charities, their groups, their clubs or businesses, empowered with more skills to benefit their organisations. Empowering community groups strengthens our community, and these workshops are cost effective and practically tailored directly to our community's requirements. I've had so much feedback from people who've taken part, and every single one of those people said their community group or club's capabilities has seen a noticeable improvement, in particular the networking. And I find it interesting when you see the graph on page 16 of 19. When you see the most popular ones, it's the same as last year. It's constitutions was the number one thing, and then number two is forming partnerships, and then number three is modern day community management. So it's just interesting the areas that our community groups are looking forward, and I think it's a great way for us to support our community. So thank you, Chair, and thank you for the community development team in council.
Thank you, Councillor Kunzelman.
I think that the Constitution popularity is an indicative of the community organisation's intentions to run well and to be fair, to have proper processes to meet the requirements of the legislation. So it's all good.
It's a real modernisation of governance in community groups that, we identified as something that was missing and a gap for our community groups. In a world where we're trying to bring people back to participate in community life, to volunteer, to be on the board of a community group, I guess in some instances they see these things as hurdles and maybe put it into the too hard basket. What is the Constitution? How do we unpack that? What are my rights? I'm just here to volunteer, without really thinking about the governance that goes or sits behind any of those organisations. So kind of myth busting and bringing that to light for our community, I see it as being a huge benefit. There's lots and lots of people that we run into in the community who have actually been a participant in these. I've been caught out several times now where talking to someone who's new to a community group, and I go to recommend them to our Stronger Communities program, but they've either already registered or they've been in attendance, at these things. So the word is getting out there, and it's really great to see. I echo, I guess, the line of questioning there from Councillor Kunzelman in that, the level of investment versus the return that we get out of these capacity building workshops is certainly worth it, and absolutely worth discussing, as we move into deliberation for next year's budget for its future inclusion. No further discussion. We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous and carried. That's the end of officer reports. We now move into notices of motion. So item number 3 is a notice of motion, an arts hub for the creative community of Ipswich. Now this notice of motion is brought to committee today by both myself and with the support of Councillor Doyle as well. For background, I guess, as Chair of Community Culture, Arts and Sport Committee, and as a resident with a keen passion for the arts, I'm enormously proud of Council's positive and collaborative work with the local creatives since 2020. While headline collaborations, including the Creators of Ipswich Summit, the Articulate workshops for emerging and established creatives, and Spark Ipswich Festival naturally stealing the limelight, backstage consultation between Council, the local creative community, and key stakeholders has been genuine and ongoing. A key outcome of this consultation is Council's Creative Industries Action Plan, released in 2022, which incorporates the feedback and recommendation from the Creators of Ipswich report, which included input from more than 100 local artists and creators, and which aims to help support local artists and build a sustainable creative industry in Ipswich. However, a significant unresolved concern of our arts community remains the absence of a local arts hub. Over the last 4 years, In my many meetings with local creatives, in my conversations at events and openings, and at all the creators of Ipswich summits, local creators have sung from one voice about the need of a local arts hub. For many Ipswich artists and creatives, the longing for an arts hub in our city has felt like the quest for a white whale. And now it's time to close the distance to the Leviathan. The delivery and activation of an arts hub is a crucial step forward in Council's journey with the creative community and stems directly from several key Council strategies and plans. The first goal of Council's Creative Industries Action Plan is to build capacity, share knowledge, and develop creative infrastructure for current and future participants of the creative community. Action Plan Goal 3 targets support for creative pathways for young people, while Goal 4, embrace and celebrate the cultural heritage and diversity, includes Action Point 4.2 that states, maintain our commitment to high quality heritage preservation and encourage the adaptive reuse of buildings. In addition to the Creative Industries Action Plan, an arts hub meets objectives of the top of town and centre core place plans within the Ipswich Central Revitalisation Plans and the Economic Development Strategy, specifically the Place Pillar. An arts hub will increase the availability of the Ipswich Community Gallery for the display of works and holding workshops. A hub will provide an alternative activation space that does not impact on the Ipswich Art Gallery. A hub will provide a space for recognised artists to work in Ipswich during an exhibition or while they prepare work for an exhibition. A hub will drive visitation and activation to the area and build on Council's rejuvenation of the Ipswich CBD. A hub reconfirms Council's commitment to supporting and growing arts and cultural industry in Ipswich. An arts hub will be transformative for our creative community, economy and city. So with that, I would like to move that that Council note the delivery and activation of a local arts hub is an opportunity to deliver on actions stemming from key Council strategies and plans, including the Creative Industries Action Plan, Ipswich Central Revitalisation Plan and the Economic Development Strategy. B, that Council investigate the immediate activation of Lease G on Lot 12, 116 Brisbane Street, Ipswich, formerly Jamie's Kitchen, as a visual arts studio. C, that Council consider medium and long-term options for the establishment and activation of a multi-use contemporary arts hub to support the local creative community of Ipswich, focusing on two key Council assets as follows. 1, 101 Limestone Street, Ipswich, also known as Fire Station 101. 2, 42 and 42B The Terrace, North Ipswich, formerly Ipswich Woolen Mills. And D, that a report in response to this notice of motion be provided to the 28 November 2023 meeting of the Community Culture, Arts and Sports Committee. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I now open that up for discussion.
Chair, I'd just like to question the old woolen mills being opened up. So many groups have asked to use over there and they've been told no because of the cost of fixing up the toilets and things. So before we make any decision on that, can we get a costing?
I guess that's the intent behind the notice of motion here today, and I agree that that's what we've been hearing from the community as well, that, you know, there's a one with a whole heap of zeros behind it for the activation of that space. But I think that we need to look at maybe breaking it up into smaller, more manageable, I guess, projects, more to allow the activation of parts of the space rather than doing an entire redevelopment of the entire woolen mills. So that's something that I certainly hope to see in the report back to us, you know, with some higher, you know, high level, you know, costings as to what that might, you know, cost the city. But the intention is to absolutely get that detail.
Okay, so I guess my other concern is that part of the bricks you can push them out, so there's obviously a lot of work to do on the outside walls as well, so all of that will be considered in your report?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. Councillor Kunzelman.
Chair, in your discussions with the public and the creatives in particular, was this request limited to visual arts?
No, which is why I guess we're looking in C, that we look at a multi-use contemporary arts hub. So that expands much broader than just the visual arts. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really delighted to see this work hopefully get underway and get some more detail around how the space could be used and, you know, potential costings around that. I think back to when we were first elected and we were taken for a site tour and what an amazing building it is, even in its derelict current state with graffiti all over the walls. It just screams an arts hub, doesn't it? So, yeah, and as you've mentioned, bite-sized pieces rather than, you know, tackling the whole project, which I think, you know, has limited anyone moving ahead with it to date. So I'm looking for a strategy on the way forward, really excited about that. And I know you're working closely with our arts community and there is always somebody coming to you looking for a space. So all of the options are really good outcomes for the arts community.
I'd like to thank you, Chair, and also Councillor for bringing this notice of motion forward. I'm very pleased to see this motion for the building in the middle of Darcy Doyle Place, formerly Jamie's Kitchen, Ministry of Food, which I attended with my 3 kids, first open, to be used as a visual arts studio. And I think this will become the centre jewel in the crown between the already highly successful Ipswich Arts Gallery and the Ipswich Community Gallery. This space will energise our local creatives, who are the backbone of so many of our arts programs, and become an incubation of ideas. This hub will allow Ipswich creatives to thrive and grow by having a space that will bring together people from various creative industries all together. When people have a safe space to collaborate, create, experiment, and learn from their peers, the result is a strengthened social, economic and cultural society. I also welcome the exploration of the multi-use contemporary arts hub at Fire Station 101 and also the former woolen mills. I guess my other thing I was going to ask you, Chair, whether we do know the Ipswich Chamber are also keen to utilise Fire Station 101 in some way, and in discussions with the creative community, they're quite excited about that potential, noting the focus on a creative economy. So I guess I'll head to you, Chair. This is your vision here. So, but certainly there's that interest there as well. The arts community and the creative community are asking for this. I think they've been promised many things. I love the fact that this is practical and the Jamie's Kitchen can be done immediately. We could start straight rather than sitting there and wait for business plans and cases and funding. I love the immediacy of what as well as the longer term planning on what's possible and what can happen. So I'd be very much supporting this, and where council has existing assets that can be maximised for the community benefit, I will fully support these investigations. So look forward to these investigations. Thank you.
Councillor Kunzelman, you had your hand up. Okay. I guess in response to Fire Station 101 being a space for businesses, and it's kind of historically been known as that, and a potential partnership with the Chamber is absolutely something that I envisage working, you know, side by side with the arts community there. There's enough space to kind of split the tenancies and not, you know, make the access too awkward. You know, there's probably a harmonisation exercise that needs to happen there in terms of how we get into the building, but it just makes sense that our business community and our arts community are side by side. That cross-pollination can happen. Sometimes businesses don't know how much they need artists and that creative thinking in their line of work. So it'd be great to see that space, you know, cohabitated by those groups.
Thank you, Chair.
With no further discussion, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous and carried. Item number 4, notice of motion, Specialist Public Space Liaison Officer. This is a notice of motion brought by Councillor Doyle and myself. and I'll hand over to you, Councillor Doyle, to take the lead on this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this notice of motion relates to a specialist public space liaison officer, and the motion is that Council investigate and employ a specialist public space liaison officer as a matter of priority. Ipswich has been hit hard by the national housing and accommodation crisis, with ever-increasing demands on local homelessness services. While the state government is responsible for providing housing and homeless services, this is a complex issue which requires a coordinated response. We propose that Ipswich City Council employ a specialist public space liaison officer, similar to the roles at both Gold Coast City Council and Brisbane City Council. A specialist public space liaison officer will support homeless individuals and families sleeping rough in streets, parks and vehicles across our city. Officers will have the required skills to conduct inspections in response to community concerns about homeless people in our parks and public spaces. The Specialist Public Space Liaison Officer will work in partnership with outreach, community and industry groups and agencies to help create a safe city where everybody belongs. The focus must be on collaboration with and the support of the agencies working to support our most vulnerable residents. Council's Specialist Public Space Liaison Officer will act as a first point of contact between Council and those experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of homelessness by engaging with the residents and linking them with support services. They will work closely with Queensland Department of Communities, Housing and Digital Economy and the passionate and dedicated non-government outreach organisations, including In Community, Hannah's House, ICYS, Bed Down, the Salvos, Beacon and Rosie's that provide important wraparound support services. The primary focus of the role would be to liaise with the public space users, local residents, businesses and community service providers to respond to issues in public parks and other spaces. These may involve homelessness, drug and alcohol use and issues generally affecting young people and the facilities in public spaces. They will work in partnership with the Queensland Police Service in relation to enforcement of Ipswich City Council local laws and other relevant Queensland legislation where necessary and where community safety is at a significant risk. Recent circumstances of homeless residents sleeping rough in various Division 3 parks has seen both an outpouring of support and compassion from many residents, but equally, many residents are frustrated when sections of their parks, such as children's play areas, become off limits due to antisocial or illegal behaviour by some. And I want to emphasise some, not all, of our rough sleepers. This issue is complex with many layers, and Ipswich is not alone. It's an issue right across Australia due to the housing crisis and the tough economic times. I might leave it there and hand over to you, Councillor Fechner.
Thanks, Councillor Doyle. I speak in support, obviously. This is an issue that's been ongoing for us and ongoing for the organisation. We've spent significant hours of our weeks, particularly in the most recent 3 months, I would say. A large portion of mine and Councillor Doyle's week has been dedicated to focusing on the issue of rough sleepers in our community and how we better support them. I love the idea of the Public Space Liaison Officer. It's working in other local government areas. But for me, I think that, and we acknowledge this all the time, this is not the core responsibility of the local government, but as the level of government closest to the people, we need to stand up, and we continue to do that for our people here in Ipswich, to kind of do our own fact-finding and information gathering. Now, we do have officers in community development who have also spent significant hours working through these issues, and they have work to do as well. So I see this role as a supporting role across many different departments, really helping us gather and understand the state of play in Ipswich so that we can better advocate for our people. And I guess a big part of that is just data collecting so that we can go to Queensland Health, so that we can go to the state government, so we can have that open dialogue with our state members to say, hey, I think that we need to have a broader discussion around this and work out an advocacy plan to deliver better outcomes for our rough sleepers. In Ipswich, we don't have a homeless health outreach team to provide, clinical support or mental health support to our rough sleepers. We also don't have a shelter for people to go, which is why we see so many of our rough sleepers, making homes out of our local parks and public spaces. So I think that the more we know, and from an organisational perspective, the more we're able to actually advocate for better outcomes in a few of these really key areas where we know the local government areas have had success because they've had the support and the funding. It's time for us to, put our brains together, ensure that we have a public space liaison officer to collect that data for us so that we've got a clear picture to talk to the state about the bespoke needs of the Ipswich community going forward, because unfortunately the crisis is only getting worse and not better.
If I may, Chair, again, thank you, Councillor Doyle and Councillor Fechner. I'll be supporting this motion. Homelessness is an issue that is affecting many as the cost of living continues to climb. We've seen a dramatic rise in people sleeping rough across our city as homelessness is reaching crisis levels. The state government has the primary responsibility for housing and homelessness, as well as those essential wraparound services from Queensland Health, Department of Communities, Queensland Police Service, as well as they provide the funding to the charities, the non-government organisations and so on in our community. So council has very limited ability. However, if we can do this to contribute to the easing of the crisis, then it has my support. And it's important that I think we give it a try. Investing in a specialist public space liaison officer, as Councillor Doyle has pointed out, has worked in other council areas and will help bridge the gap between the community, public space users, community support services, the police and other relevant state government agencies.
Any further discussion? No. We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous and carried. Oh, there we go. Councillor Doyle, I guess, did move it, so there is no seconder, to which I will happily second. And we'll take the vote again, just to be sure. Yep. And that's Councillor Kunzelman. How do you vote? Yep. And that's unanimous and carried. Item number 5, and the final notice of motion for today at committee, is the temporary safety cameras in Tony Merrill Park, Leichhardt. This notice of motion is brought by Councillor Doyle and myself once more, and I'll hand over to you, Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Yes, the notice of motion relates to the temporary safety cameras in Tony Merrill Park, Leichhardt. The motion being that Ipswich City Council install 2 temporary safety cameras at Tony Merrill Park in Leichhardt with a view to working with Queensland Police Service to help identify offenders and to provide footage that supports investigations or prosecutions by QPS in relation to riding of trail bikes in the park. And that council review existing signage at and in the park to ensure that it clearly prohibits operation of motorbikes and trail bikes in the park in accordance with council's local laws. The illegal and antisocial riding of trail bikes and motorbikes in parks and reserves is a citywide problem, I acknowledge that. However, for the last 3 years in Division 3, these activities have been ongoing in Tony Merrill Park at Leichhardt, which has seen bikes being ridden dangerously close to park users and escalated to dangerous confrontations, assaults and clashes between residents, park users and riders. Residents are fed up with the noisy and dangerous operation of these vehicles in their local park, which has become a significant amenity and safety concern, with children and park users almost being struck by the trail bikes, a regular occurrence in the park. These bikes also present a risk for Ipswich City Council in our view. Council needs to take preventative and deterrent actions. Community safety in council-owned parks and reserves must be paramount. Residents living near Tony Merrill Park regularly complain to both police and council that they are unable to keep their doors and windows open due to the noise and dust. Unfortunately for the topography in that park, it's an old dump, there's areas of the park that are open space and they're used as a dirt track and for jumps. Individual community members have regularly asked for safety cameras to be installed in Tony Merrill Park. And while temporary cameras will not be a part of Council's formal Safe City network, they, will hopefully be used in support of police through their investigations and prosecutions, and potentially serve as a deterrent. And, we've got a recent case example, I guess, of the use of the temporary cameras in Marburg. I understand similar sorts of antisocial behaviours ongoing there. And yes, again, local government, it's not, housing isn't, part of our remit, neither is policing, but I just note the Marburg Police Station officer in charge, his comments that, installation was a good example of Council and the Queensland Police Service working together to support community safety. I could probably go on, Chair, and you know as well as I do that my phone blows up nearly every day. Probably the most disappointing recent message from one particular resident is that they feel that they're not being heard and that they aren't valued because the particular suburb, Leichhardt, people have formed a view on that particular suburb over the years. It's suffered from a bit of stigma. And as much as I try and advocate for them and try and convince them that that's not the case, there is certainly the feeling out there that they're being ignored.
And when it's so persistent and ongoing, I mean, we're talking about an issue that has been gracing our office since the year 2020, off and on. There wasn't one neighbourhood watch meeting that we went to that this issue wasn't raised at. And some of the confronting pictures that have come through to Councillor Doyle's phone from members of the community has been absolutely distressing, because it has ended up in confrontation and violence down in the park, on and on and on and on over years. Yes, there was a bit of a period, I guess about 12 to 18 months ago, where the trail bike riders weren't as active in the park, but it's now ramped back up again. So it's time to take action on this issue.
And can I just, sorry, Chair, if I may, just add to that, we have worked with council officers over the last couple of years on this one. We've investigated potentially fencing, particularly the children's playground, to ensure those kids are safe. We've investigated putting fencing up right around the park, which isn't practical because it borders on that reserve. I think the land there is owned by Department of Housing. We have also, and I think this is where there was some limited success, working closely with Department of Housing when the individuals have been identified and they are residents of those Department of Housing homes. So they are dealt with at that level as well, but it requires an ongoing multi-pronged approach.
Thank you. So that's moved by Councillor Doyle, and I'll second that. Any further contributions to the motion?
And thank you, Chair and Councillor Doyle, for this motion and standing up for residents in Leichhardt who've been impacted with this issue for many years. I know from that you've had many conversations, so I should say many, dozens of conversations with police and many, many more with residents, and I can attest to you getting your messages and conversations, Councillor Doyle and Councillor Fechner. We have found that early intervention with the use of cameras to be a valuable tool for our community. Councillors use cameras like these for monitoring flood levels, parking safety in busy school areas, and illegal dumping. So it's a great use of this technology. We have a really good working relationship with Queensland Police Service, and over the past 5 years, Safe City has assisted police on 7,000 occasions and reviewed video for the Queensland Police Service over 2,500 times, resulting in 1,300 pieces of video being released for investigation and prosecution purposes. So I think noting how successful it is, and for me, with a citywide view, not just a divisional view, this area here, Tony Merrill Park, has more issues with trail bikes and motorbikes than any other area. I didn't find anything on the web for in our city. So it's a big concern in that area. The residents there are very upset. And they are suffering worse than any other area in our city. So I think it's really important that we do put these cameras here. So I do hope these temporary cameras in Tony Merrill Park will act as a deterrent for anyone who's considering doing the wrong thing.
Councillor Madsen?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to go into litigating where the worst is, I just want to say that I think it's a good proposal, and Councillor Ireland and I, since seen it go into the agenda, have been talking about a couple of spots. Redbank Plains is a very big hotspot for a lot of trail bike use that's unsafe like this. We've got some incidences that we're not going to go into in the meeting. So keen to see how it progresses and look at how we can implement it elsewhere.
With no further discussion and it being moved and seconded this time, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's unanimous and carried. Which brings us to the conclusion of our committee this afternoon at 1:22 p.m. The next committee will commence at 1:32 p.m.